It's another great day to be in the garden, and I can't wait to tackle this spot of my yard. And if you've ever struggled with an area in your garden that gets different light exposures throughout the year, then this video might just be for you. This area of my yard is a little bit tricky because in the wintertime it's in full shade, the front porch and this whole bedded area right here. But in the summertime, when the sun is more straight up and overhead, that light condition does change, and you can kind of see that right now. We get a little bit of sun in the late afternoon in this spot, so I have to be mindful because whatever I plant in here cannot be just full shade. It has to deal with a little bit of sun throughout the day. And so stick around because I got a lot to show you about how I'm going to plant this beautiful area up with some gorgeous annuals, and I'm going to refresh my front porch. So a couple of goals that I have for an area like this that is tricky is I want to make sure that it is intentional. I want to make sure that I don't over formalize this area because I want it to be warm and inviting. And that's one of the reasons why I picked these tin containers up a couple of years ago. And it kind of gives you that rustic, lived in feel. And when you plant them up with annuals, they really do turn out very nicely. So I really want to make sure that I use containers that I already have because honestly, guys, gardening can get expensive really fast, and if we can reuse our containers as much as possible, then I feel it's a win because that's one less cost that we have to worry about, and cutting costs right now is really a good thing, at least in my wallet's case. So I'm going to go ahead and clear out the soil, and I'm using a new soil that I haven't used before. It's the Members Mark potting soil from Sam's Club. I usually use the moisture control soil from, I believe it's Miracle Grow. I've used that for many years, and it's always a better deal when I get the large amounts from Sam's Club. And so they had this one this year. I've used it in a couple of my containers so far. It seems to be working just fine. And so anytime we can cut costs by using our containers again and using a soil that's high quality like this, it's going to be a win for sure. And it says it does the same thing. So it controls and regulates moisture, which is important in this part of the yard because even though they're in the shade for most of the day, when it does get hot, the plants will take up more moisture, and I don't want things to dry out. So that's really important. Also, the containers, the plants that are in these containers are definitely tired. They've seen better days, so I'm going to clear those out and start fresh with some new soil because it's always best to start fresh when you want your plants to last throughout the season. And I'm going to clear out, after I plant up these containers, I'm going to show you what plants I'm going to plant in them in just a second, but I'm going to clear out my planters as well. Maybe take some of the weeds out that have been growing in there, but I have some surefire white begonias, guys, that have seen better days, but they've been in there honestly for 3 years now. And you know, they fizzle out over time. They're not meant to last that long. They're an annual in most areas. We're just lucky here because we have mild winters, and so we can overwinter them. So the fact that I got 3 seasons out of them is huge. I'm going to also make sure when I pull those out that I check my drip irrigation line to make sure that each one of the root balls in that area is getting drip, because just like my containers, I want to make sure that my planters are getting the amount of water that they need, because my new plants that I plant in there are going to have to last and survive through the summer heat as well. So let's go talk about these gorgeous annuals that I'm going to plant in their spot as I refresh this whole area of my yard. All right, so let's talk about these beautiful plant specimens. I'm so excited to get them in their spot. And I really try in a shade garden to add texture in foliage with blooms because it really does soften the space and it keeps it interesting. That's why I decided to plant a heuchera, because it's beautiful. It's all about the foliage. They do bloom small little tiny plumes. They're called coral bells is another name for these heuchera. And those are pretty, but they're mainly known for their foliage. And I'm sure a lot of you have planted these before. This is an exceptionally beautiful variety. It kind of has a greenish, almost like an auburn red, and a mix of a little bit of a chartreuse. It's really interesting. And I think it's going to be really beautiful against the tin container, along with the other plant that I'm going to plant in here that's going to be blooming all the time. But heuchera are great because they can handle that shade and just a little bit of sun. Sometimes they can burn in intense sun, but I think that area of our yard is shaded just enough where it's going to be totally fine. Just an hour in the late afternoon, as long as they stay moist, I think it's going to be perfect for them. I've had heuchera in the landscape in that part of the yard many times before, and it's done fantastic. So we'll see. Hopefully this works really well with that. Secondly, in those tin containers, I'm going to plant up this beautiful Double Delight begonia from Proven Winners. This is the blush rose, and I was talking about this in my garden tour last week, and I can't wait to get it in its container because it's not a super vigorous plant in that it was not going to go crazy, but I've been holding this in my backyard for a number of weeks since I received it. And even though the tag says that it can handle full sun, here in Southern California, or if you're in a southern state, I would not recommend that, because even in its condition where it's in right now, you can tell that some of the leaves have been burning. It's way too much sun and cannot handle that full sun heat all day long. And I think once I get them in that more protected space, I think the foliage will darken up and it will be less likely to burn because it won't be in as much sun. So those are going into the tin containers. And then I'm going to change them up a little bit so they're not completely matching. Because if you remember the tin containers that I showed you a moment ago, they're not exactly matching. It's only the tin that draws them together and makes them a nice pair. So instead of planting them up exactly, I'm going to choose a spiller that's a little bit different in each one. In one of them, I'm going to plant up this really nice wire vine, and I'll probably put this one in the area where it gets a little bit less sun, more towards the front door. But look at that foliage, is so pretty. I know it looks a little bit unruly right now, but once they get established, they will trail. This will trail beautifully, and I like the dark green alongside the different foliage. I think it does give a really nice variety in textures, and wire vine is really fun. So I'm going to plant that in one of them, probably the smaller of the containers. And then in the other one, I'm going to plant this creeping Jenny, which is one of the plants that I planted in those containers last year when I planted my other begonias that were red, along with the hippo plant. The wire vine, it can handle a little bit of shade. It's part sun, but I think it can handle more shade than it actually says on the tag. And I know for sure this creeping Jenny really does great in that protected area, because often I've planted this before in the full sun, which it says it can handle, but they dry out so fast. So it really is the ideal spot in our yard to plant the creeping Jenny. So I'm going to plant it in there. So I have the begonias, the wire vine, the creeping Jenny alongside the heuchera. I think all three of those are going to be beautiful plants in those tin containers. I've been kind of shying away from planting a lot of excessive plants in the same container, but I am going to plant 3 in each of them because none of these are super vigorous. The spillers will spill over the side, so they don't need to take up a lot of spot. And the begonias, they will grow up and mound beautifully and trail over the side, but they're not going to be super out of control anytime soon. They're going to take their time growing. And the heuchera, it's just going to mound beautifully, creating that gorgeous foliage texture in contrast to everything else. So I think they're going to really play well together, and that's important to think about too. Then I also have a focal point container. It's a little bit larger. It's at the end of my porch, and you probably saw it from the first few shots. I'll show you that here. In that container, I don't want to have anything besides a double impatient because it really is the perfect spot. And that focal point container is in full shade most of the time. It might even get barely a half an hour of dappled sun, and that's perfect for these impatiens. Just a little side note for all of these plants, I'm going to make sure, like I said before, that I'm going to hook them all up to drip. I'll show you that. But my impatiens really don't need a lot of extra fertilizer, because when I reduce my fertilizer, I notice that I have less invasive bugs attacking them. That's just a little tip, because I've noticed that when I fertilize them too much, I start to have problems. And now the last variety of plants that I can't wait to get into the landscape in the planter is this beautiful SunPatien orchid blush from Proven Winners. I'm choosing a SunPatien because that area gets a lot more sun than my porch does. This area is going to be a lot more protected. The area down below will be in sun a lot more, so I want to put something in there that can handle the sun, like my surefire begonias that I planted over the years. Those plants can do well in sun or shade, and they've shown me that for sure. They've done really well there, and I think a SunPatien is going to be very similar, because they do enjoy a little bit of reprieve from the harsh sun, and if they get blasted by the sun in the late afternoon, at least it won't be all day long. So I'm going to get those in there. And I chose this variety because it's very similar in color to my Cool Jazz Vista petunias that I planted on the other side, on the south planter area. And I think by choosing a similar color, I think it's going to tie the whole front yard in. So beautiful, right? And these are supposedly going to be compact. Can't wait to get these in, guys. Now, come along with me for the process. I'll show you what I got planned. All right, so I have my tin container, my first one, emptied out. You can see the drainage holes that I cut in there a number of years ago. It's really important to make sure you have drainage holes, otherwise your plants will not survive. And I like to use those drainage holes to run up my drip irrigation line through the bottom. So I'll just find one of those holes, draw it through there, and then set it down and pull it up through the top, just so I have enough line to play with, so that I can connect my emitter eventually. So once I have that in, then it's just a matter of adding the soil and then the beautiful annuals in their spot. So I'm going to take a little bit of my soil. I'm going to really press that down in there. And then I'm going to grab some containers and pop them in that match these containers, so that I just have to basically fill in the soil around the containers, remove the containers, and then pop in the plants. It's really the easiest way to do it. And as you can tell, I'm just really pressing these down in there and filling the soil in around the sides. So that emitter is going to spray out all directions inside the pot, and I can adjust the amount of water that comes out of that emitter by just adjusting the top, either screwing it loose or screwing it tighter. Let's start with the trailing. Let's see if I can pull this out and pop this one in. That looks like it's just going to be just right, and I'll have it flow over the side just like so. Look at that. Perfect. And this area right here is really starting to sprout, so I think once I get it in a more protected area, I think it's going to really do well. And then lastly, the heuchera. Just going to pop that one in right there. So I couldn't be happier with the way this container turned out, because over time I know that these plants will fill in beautifully. That creeping Jenny will just fill in over the side, eventually cascading and softening the look of this tin container. And then the begonia, which is kind of flat right now, it's kind of hanging over a little bit, it will continue to mound and really fill in this spot with those beautiful double rose blush blooms. And then the heuchera will just really continue to double in size, and the foliage will create a really nice variety in texture that really does create a non-formal look and make this container overall really warm and inviting and absolutely perfect for our intended goals for that spot in our yard. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue to plant up the next container. Instead of the creeping Jenny, I'm going to put the wire vine in there, and then I'm going to plant up the flower bed, really give that a complete refresh, test the drip irrigation system, show you how each root ball will have its own emitter, and then finally plant up the end container with those beautiful double impatiens. And guys, this is the refresh that I've been waiting so long to do, and I know you're going to love the end result. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, that was a lot of fun and super satisfying getting that area planted up with those beautiful SunPatiens. So now for this container, this is the one that I was talking about that I love to plant double impatiens because it just gets dappled sun right about now just a little bit and it's otherwise totally protected. And these apple blossom impatiens are gonna really appreciate the fact that they're totally protected because they do need to be in full shade. They're not as forgiving as our sun impatiens, hence the name. So I'm just gonna plant 3 of these in here in probably just like a triangular formation. And I'm going to run the drip irrigation through the bottom just like the other containers so that I can make sure that this gets watered when it needs it. So I'm just taking this, putting it through the bottom, just like that. Perfect. So now the question is, how do I arrange my arrangement to where it works best from being seen maybe from this side? So probably 2 on this side and 1 towards the back here. All right, so these are just super easy. I'm just gonna pop them in, dig down in, move it to the side, pop them in. And this soil is fortified. So I don't need to add anything extra because like I said, these impatiens are not going to need anything really too much in terms of fertilizer. So they're not even root bound, so they're good to go. All right. And now I'm going to take this and add I've already built this little irrigation system so that it goes to all 3 of them. So I just need to hook this up to that, and this emitter will water this flower, this one will water that one, and this one, the back one. It's in a triangular pattern, so I'll just set that down in there and connect it right here, and that'll be easy as that. Okay, everything's in its place and I'm super excited. Obviously, it's a different day. I had to stop yesterday because today we're celebrating my oldest daughter and my son-in-law's graduation from college. So we had to get things ready, but I did want to finish the video by talking about the irrigation that I have set up in the planters and also to the containers. It really has been a huge game changer for me because, as I always say, I always get busy like I know a lot of you do. And when I forget to water things, sometimes that can put unnecessary stress on my plants that are in my containers especially. So if I don't have to worry about that, then they do so much better because they never get stressed from drying out. So basically how this is done is here at our house, we already had a pre-existing sprinkler system. One of those sprinkler systems were in our planters and they had a sprinkler head. In our case, it was a bubbler that when it would turn on, it would overflow and kind of deep soak the area, which all of that water is not absolutely necessary. It's much better to have just a little bit of water to each one of the root balls, and that's what the drip irrigation achieves. So I came through and I took the sprinkler head off and I added a little drip. It's a Rainbird drip adapter where it has like 2 little prongs that you can hook up drip irrigation line to, and I screwed that onto the piping, and then I ran the drip line to each one of the root balls in the planter, and then another line up to where my containers are on the front porch, so that when I repot my planters like I did today, all I need to do is gather the drip line that's already there that I ran before in the past and connect it. I'm going to show you how I do that right now, and it really is amazing. And you could easily do this even if you didn't have the sprinkler system in your planters. There are a lot of irrigation systems or drip irrigation systems that you can hook up to your hose spigot, and I have that in the backyard and I have a video on that, so if you want to check that out, it's really effective, and that's how I do all of my watering in my backyard because I don't have a sprinkler system back there. So let me show you how this works, and I'll show you the adapter that I bought, and if you have it already set up like this, this might actually work for you. Let's check it out. Okay, so it all starts with this little adapter, and if I can pull back the plant that I just planted so close, right here. And this little adapter that has the two different prongs here where the water comes out and then the drip line fits onto your pre-existing pipeline. And that is really what has been super helpful, because once I removed those bubblers off of here, the sky is the limit. I could run drip to pretty much anything into planters, and one of these will go up to my containers, and I'll show you how that works. So it starts off here, and then I need to fix this right now. I need to have one that will water this plant right here, and then this one will have to, the end of that will have to go to the other plant. So this line was originally intended for my other begonias that were in here before. So I have a drip irrigation emitter right here. I don't need that. So, and this one on the very end is kind of clogged. So I'm gonna replace this. So I'm just gonna trim this off. It's already hooked up to the main line right there. And I'm gonna take a connector, which is just a straight shot that you can put right in the end of the one that you just recently trimmed like I did, and this will be removed, and I'm going to get more new line, and I'm going to run an emitter to this plant right here, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm super happy with the way all of this turned out. I mean, I'm glad I took the time to kind of show you how all of this works, because the drip irrigation really is the key to make sure this place is successful. Also, the choice of plants, because the sun condition changes from time to time during the year, and all of these plants can handle that. The impatiens that are in here, they need to be in shade, and this area is fully shaded for the most part. It gets dappled sun, but they're going to do just fine. But everything else has to be able to handle both, and the SunPatiens are perfect for that. They can handle shade, they can handle more sun. The key here is that they're not in sun all day long. They get a reprieve, which is going to be great, and they have that drip for extra moisture when it does get hot. The pots that I planted up with the begonias, the beautiful heuchera in there, which is a perennial, by the way, for us, and then the wire vine and the creeping jenny are going to be perfect, can handle both of those situations. It's tricky in a place like this, but if you plan it right, then you can have success, and I think these are going to be successful all season long. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I really do appreciate you coming by and for all of the nice comments. Let me know what you do or what you plant in your shade area of your yard, because all of us have great ideas, and I always love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, take care, everybody.